Hey friends, I'm Robin. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm wrapping up my winter TBR. If you have not seen my winter TBR, I will link it up in the cards as well as in the description box down below. Every single season, I like to make a TBR of 10 books that I want to read that season, and then at the end of the season, I like to come back and check in with how many books that I read, what my ratings were, how much I liked them. I am a TBR reader, so usually I read all or the majority of these books. For winter, I had 10 books and I read all 10 of them. I had a huge range of ratings, everywhere from a DNF to 5 stars. So I wasn't sure how to order this. I think I'm gonna go in order from my least favorite to my most favorite, so we can end on a good note and get the negative reviews out of the way at the front end. So let's get right into the reviews. Kicking things off with the one DNF, I read Melt for Us by Molly Doyle, or I read part of it. This was the sequel to Scream for Us, which I loved. I thought that was such a fun, over-the-top, ridiculous sociopath romance, and this was the follow-up to it, and it was following the exact same characters. However, I made it not very far into this. There are huge trigger warnings for rape in the past, but there was a reenactment scene that started at about the 10% mark, and I quickly noped right out of that. I have seen a lot of other people also DNF this one who liked the first one for the same reason. I put this one down, decided it wasn't for me, and moved on. The next lowest rated book is such a sad one for me, and I'm really sad that this is the next book that I'm talking about, but it is Electric Idol by Katie Robert, and I gave this 2 stars. I had vlogged my experience reading this, and part of me wanted to post just this, but I ended up losing a bunch of my footage, and I did still have clips of me reading this, and I did consider just posting this one because my ranting was quite humorous, but I did not like this. I know that I am in the vast minority here because everyone that I see talking about this book, everyone that I follow, really loved this book, but I honestly liked nothing about it. I listened to this on audio because I did get a ALC for it. I hated the narration, which again is a very unpopular opinion because a lot of people are saying about how great this book, how great the narration was for this book, and I just could not get on with it. I hated the male narrator. I didn't like the listening experience, but my real issue with this book is its plot or lack thereof. This is a Psyche and Eros retelling, for those of you that don't know. And in this book, Eros's mother has tasked him with killing Psyche, and they meet at a restaurant and he is there to kill her. And he decides that he's not going to kill her and that the only way out of this plot is for them to get married so that his mom can't kill Psyche. And if you're thinking to yourself, that makes no sense, I agree with you. It does not make any sense. Why would that deter his mother from killing her? I don't know. And let me tell you, it doesn't matter in the end. This book, the plot made absolutely no sense. The characters were so ridiculous. The first, 2/3 of this book takes place within 24 hours. And the romance progresses so much in that 2/3. And the whole time I kept thinking, but it's only been 13 hours since you guys met at a diner where you were going to kill her. And so I just could not get past it. And then the twist part at the end where his mother comes back into play just makes the entire first 3/4 of the book completely pointless, utterly pointless. And then the conclusion is so convenient that by the time that I finished this book, I was like, what was the point of this book? The romance wasn't good. This had no plot. The plot itself made absolutely no sense. And this book had me rethinking whether or not I knew what my taste in books was, because I I didn't like anything about this. This had some of the most like cringy sentences ever. He licks Psyche and says that she tastes like a cookie. 2 stars. After that is another Katie Robert book, actually, and that is Queen by Katie Robert. This is the 3rd and final book in the Bloodline Vampires series, and I thought this conclusion was fine. It's super short. This series is just a really ridiculous, over-the-top MMMF vampire romance, and I thought that this was fun. My one, like, complaint with this final book is that where we end in book 2 is this huge cliffhanger that like separates all of our characters. And when that book completed, I was like, I really like where we're at, but these books are only like 150 pages long, and I was like, how are we gonna go from where we're at to a like realistic conclusion in 150 pages? And this book, it bridges that, but it happens so fast that I wish it had been like a little bit longer, or if there had been like a 4th book or something, just because like too much had to happen in these 150 pages in order to get from point A to point B. And it ended up feeling rushed. And because of that, the conclusion felt too easy. So it was a good conclusion. I have fun with this series. I wanted a little bit more time, I guess, with this. So 3 stars. It was good. I enjoyed the series. It's definitely a series that I recommend for paranormal romance readers because it is highly, highly entertaining. After that, we get into my 4-star reads, and I actually had 4 stars this month. So I'm going to try and rank my 4 stars, but it's going to be difficult. Okay, so I think I ranked them. Don't hold me to this ranking. But next we have Running Wild by K.A. Tucker. This is a spin-off of the Simple Wild series. However, I would say that it's pretty necessary to have read the Simple Wild series, at least the 1st book, if not the 2nd, because the characters in that and like some of the plot and stuff like that is referenced so much in Running Wild. You could get by without reading the Simple Wild series, but a lot of stuff would be ruined for you, as well as you would miss a lot of the references. This follows Marie, who is good friends with the hero from the Simple Wild series, and she was always carrying a torch for him, and she was kind of like biding her time, and she now feels like she wasted all of that time because he is married and in love with somebody else, and now she is in her late 30s, and she feels like she's starting over. And she meets this guy. He is a sled dog racer, and she always like volunteers at the big sled dog race in Alaska. The two of them have this really bad first meeting and first impression, but they get to know each other along the competition, and they kind of start building something together. But she discovers that he is emotionally unavailable and decides like, we need to cut ties because I am not okay with like wasting my time on somebody who doesn't want to be in a relationship with me. And this book does a really, really good job of building their romance and their chemistry. I adored these characters, and they had really good chemistry together. The one thing that kept this book from being like a favorite was that I felt like the main thing that was keeping these characters from being together was never fully solved. So the hero is emotionally unavailable for reasons. I'm not going to spoil it for you. At the end of the book, he is still in that state, and then we kind of skip over him like getting over that and like them working through that issue, and we jump straight to an epilogue and an AGA. And I wish we had gotten a little bit of them being together and working through that problem, because I felt like we skipped over the difficult part, you know? So I really liked this romance. I wish we had gotten at least a little bit of that. After that, I'm going with Beautiful Nightmares by KJ Sutton. This is the 4th book in the Fortuna Sworn series. I'm not going to talk much about the plot of this because it is the 4th book in a series, but this book was really, really long, and the beginning portion of this, where heroine is in a really difficult situation. She's being tortured, and it took me a long time to get through that first section, not because the writing was bad or the plot wasn't interesting or whatever. It was just really difficult to read. There was so much on-page torture, and it was difficult to get through. And then the pacing of this one was a little bit slower because we were taking more of an internal look at a lot of the characters. And so it was a lot of like character growth in here. And so there were just times where like the plot would kind of slow down. I still really, really liked everything that was done in this book. Like I said, we got to know the characters on a much deeper level, which I think is going to be important for the final 2 books. It was just a bit of a slower read, and it didn't have all of like the epic twists that like Deadly Dreams did. So this was a 4-star rating, but I still really, really love this series. I have talked about this series a lot. I described the plot of the series in that TBR, winter TBR video. So if you want to check that out, you can hear more about the series. But 4 books are now out. I absolutely love it. Highly recommend. Next up is going to be Count Your Lucky Stars by Alexandra Bellafleur. This is the 3rd book in the Written in the Stars series. And in this, we are following Margot, who is the like co-creator of the Oh My Stars app, which was created by one of the heroines in book 1. And so they are best friends. And this is a childhood friends to lovers second chance sort of romance. And I really loved this. Alexandra Bellafleur is giving us the steamy sapphic romances that we all deserve and need. This book was so steamy and so good. Their chemistry was fantastic. So fantastic. And I really loved their connection because they started off as friends in childhood and something kind of like separated them, and now they're coming back together. They are living together, so there's also forced proximity, which is just always my favorite. There's an adorable cat named Cat, and I really, really loved this. The one thing that kept this from being a 5-star was that this entire story relies heavily on miscommunication, and it got to be a little much at the end. Our other heroine, the love interest, makes some pretty crappy decisions, and it kind of reinforces the miscommunication. And miscommunication isn't my favorite romance trope, so it wasn't my favorite way to create the conflict, but it was also realistic for these 2 characters. So this was a 4-star. I just love this series. I can't wait to see what this author writes next. And then the last of the 4 stars is The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca. It took me so long to get that author duet, like be able to say that without like tripping over all of my words, but I really, really liked this. I toyed with going back and forth between a 4 and a 4.5, and I ended up landing on a 4-star, but I loved this adult romance. This is probably going to be a bit of a hit or miss story for a lot of people because there are huge content warnings for cheating in here. Emotional cheating, physical cheating, all of the cheating happens. I know that that's not going to work for everyone, but something about these characters just really pulled on my heartstrings. And I just really loved this exploration of romance. And so in this, we are following this writer duo. And in the past, they started writing these romances together, and they had this really amazing friendship. The hero was married and the heroine was single, and they went away to this retreat down in Florida, and there they were writing their like big hit novel. While they are down there, something happens, and because of it, when their book is released, they have this like huge split, and they go their separate ways, and they don't see each other for like, I don't remember, like 5 years or something like that. Now the hero wants to start writing books again, and no one will sell his books because he is under contract to write one more book with the heroine. His publisher reaches out to try and convince the heroine to write their final contracted book together. And since then, he has gotten a divorce and she has gotten engaged, and she reluctantly agrees for reasons. And the 2 of them go back to their Florida retreat to write their next book. And it is a second chance romance between them. Like I said, huge content warnings for cheating, emotional cheating. There is some like verbal abuse to the heroine, and just this book is a lot heavier than I thought it would be. It's a lot heavier than this adorable cover hints at, but there were just a lot of really good things discussed in here. The heroine has intense anxiety, and that is addressed. and just I really enjoy this, and I hope that this author duo writes more adult books because this was so, so good. And then the biggest surprise of the month is the fact that I had 3 5-stars. So I don't know how to pick for my favorites amongst my favorites, but I'm just going to talk about them in the order that I read them. So first up is Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly. I'm sure you're all really glad that I finally read this and I'm no longer pitching it to you, because I pitched this book in like, I don't know, half of the videos on my channel, and I was starting to feel bad for how often I was talking about this book, but I loved this. Oh my god, this was so good. This is one of the first books that I read this year, and it just set up my year for success. This is a romance between our 2 characters. One is non-binary, and the other one is a recently divorced woman who is trying to take back control of her life, and the 2 of them are on a cooking show, and they are supposed to be rivals of this cooking show, but they form this really sweet bond and they have a romance, and this was just so good. This discussed all kinds of things: sexuality, gender, identity, yeah, so many good things were in here. I loved the like conflict and conclusion. It was all done so well. This is a really soft romance. That's the best way that I can describe it. This doesn't have like electric chemistry and there's not like sparks flying all over the place. These 2 just have this really deep bond towards each other and connection, and they are able to talk about what they're feeling, and I really liked how quiet and sweet this romance was. It just felt very cozy and realistic and absolutely wonderful. After that, I read Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey, and this is an all-time favorite. This series is just so good. Tessa Bailey has really hit her stride for me. This is the 3rd book of hers in a row that I have given 5 stars, and I cannot wait for the next books that she is releasing this year because she is killing it with these romances. This follows the heroine is the sister to the heroine in book 1, and the hero is the best friend of the hero from book 1. In this, our heroine is coming back to the small town for a movie she is working on, and she is really trying to take the next step in her career and like take control of her life, and she needs a place to stay while she is in the small town. But her sister doesn't have a room, so she ends up staying with the hero, and they have a forced proximity friends to lovers romance, and it is so good. Oh my god. I knew that this was going to be 5 stars from the prologue. The prologue is a like text conversation or like text chain between them, and I was here for their romance from that. It was just the hero stole my heart. And I will say that there are really, really big trigger warnings in here for like sexualization of the hero, really negative commentary on his body, and the way that he grew up. Everyone sexualized him from a very young age, and that has kind of grown into his personality as an adult. So content warnings for that. It does get a little heavy in there, especially reading some of the comments that other people make to him and about him. It was rough. It broke my heart. But I loved the way that it was handled and the discussions that were had in here, especially from the viewpoint of a male character instead of from a female character. It was good discussion. Loved this book. 5 out of 5 stars. And then the last book in my notes, I literally wrote 5 holy fuck stars, and that is House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J Maas. I didn't put this on like my like most anticipated video, or maybe I did, I don't remember, but I was not putting this on a whole ton of lists. I gave Crescent City 5 stars. I reread Crescent City, I gave it 5 stars, but for some reason, like my anticipation for this book, while it was high, I was trying to like temper my expectations, and this like blew all of them out of the water. This is a beast of a book, and I read it in I think 3 days. I did listen to the audiobook as I read, just because I like to be able to hear my fantasies as I like read along. But wow, this was so good. There are tons of perspectives. This picks off a couple of months after what happens in book 1, and we are following a couple new characters. We are following the characters that we love. There are adorable sea otters in here, but let me tell you, I wish I had filmed myself reading the last 100 pages of this book, because the screams that I let out, I literally punched my husband in the last page. He was sitting next to me and I like freaked out. Oh my god, I have no words. I have no words for this book. I can't believe that Sarah J Maas went there, but she went there, and I will never be okay again. So that is all 10 books that I talked about in my winter TBR. I'm so proud of myself for reading all 10. Usually there's like one straggler left that like I didn't get to, or like I put on a TBR but I realized that it comes out in the next season. But I finished all 10 books. Look at me go. I have set my spring TBR. That video is coming up super soon. So let me know if you read any of these books this winter. Let me know your thoughts on them, and I will catch you all in my next video. Bye.